Hello and welcome to BCC Virtual Racing. Tonight's course is the Astoria Line 8 in New York. 3 laps of a 11.5 kilometre circuit following a 0.4 kilometre lead-in. Each of the 4 categories, A, B, C and D, start at 1 minute intervals. Let's have a look at the riders in the start pen warming up. Lancia hoping to consolidate his position following 3 wins. But this course, while not hilly, has some short, sharp undulations. Blackham hopefully well rested following his recent performances. Another one to watch, another pair to watch, Collier and Stoneham, I think, could have a great competition in today's race. The course, I think, will suit both of them. And a return to competition for Mayhew Smith. Let's hope he doesn't get disqualified this time. 3 seconds to go before the start. And the riders are off, following Shannon at the moment, a veteran of 54 races. Very experienced rider. He knows how to play the game well, and I expect him to sit within this bunch for quite some time yet. The A riders on screen now, started 1 minute earlier with Blackham, Lisa and Lancia. Blackham holding over 400 watts, so a very quick start. 30 seconds into the race, a more comfortable start for Lisa, sitting 30-40 watts above her FTP. Lancia just behind her at the moment. He will of course be looking for another win with the B group now, which has Davis, Taff, Shannon, Campbell, Dury, O'Brien. I don't expect them all to stay together, but they should for a while. Having said that, it looks as if O'Brien is making a push already. Just at the back of this group, 2 seconds down, Mayhew Smith. I don't expect he'll be there for long. He'll catch on to this group pretty quickly. Certainly riding at a very comfortable 230-40 watts. Based on recent performances, I would expect him to finish towards the front of this particular group. Our first look at Stoneham. No sign of Collier at the moment, but Nixon just behind him. And further back in the field, Littlewood riding with Jones. In previous races, these 2 riders have stayed together for a while but have drifted apart slowly, and I would expect Littlewood to finish a couple of minutes ahead of Jones towards the end. Our first view of Collier at 250-260 watts in that same group with him, Stoneham, as I would expect, and Nixon is there as well. I would think that Stoneham and Collier will probably stick to each other like glue through this race. I'm not so sure Nixon will hold this pace with Collier and Stoneham, but it'd be great if he could. No sooner had I said that than Stoneham and Collier begin to put on a bit of pressure and in fact are pulling away from the group. I don't think it's an attack at this stage, they're just trying to see what the rest of the group can do. With Campbell now, he has dropped out of the main bunch of B riders, and in fact Shannon and Taff some 30 seconds ahead of him. I would have expected him to stay with them for much longer, but perhaps he has a different strategy in mind for tonight's race. At 7.8 kilometres into the race, Dury has dropped off the group he was riding with. They are now some 15 seconds behind, but more interestingly, the group that contains Shannon and Taff are 15 or so seconds behind. Here is O'Brien, 18 seconds ahead of Dury, lost his group riding with one other rider. Probably not where he wants to be, but he is quite good at doing this. Mayhew Smith and Davis. Don't forget they started 1 minute behind the Category A riders, but do seem to be catching them up. And something I didn't expect to see in tonight's race, Lisa has been isolated 1 minute 17 seconds behind the group, the leading A group that she was with. I certainly wouldn't write her off at this stage. And further up the field with Blackham, now he seems to be dropping off slightly from the group that he is in. In fact, Blackham goes on to drop off even further very quickly, and a large gap develops, and not long after this Blackham retires from the race, with Lancia now at the front, position 15 at the moment. At this stage it is very unlikely that he knows that Blackham has pulled out of the race, which would be a great incentive for him and perhaps push him towards a 4th win in a row. And this is a great performance from the B group, having chased down Dury's earlier breakaway. Shannon and Taff are now just about to catch him up. In fact, that is him just in front. O'Brien still riding fairly much in isolation. The chasing Taff and Shannon group are catching roughly 20 seconds behind. I don't think it'll be too long before they close that gap. It'd probably be a wise move from O'Brien to drop back and join them as well. Jury has now been caught. He'd be well to stick with this group if he can, but I suspect he has paid the price for going too hard, too fast, too soon. Interestingly, he has no recorded heart rate on screen, which isn't good news really. Campbell finds himself in complete isolation now, some 40 odd seconds behind Shannon and Taff. And not forgetting our Category D riders, our first look at Lord, riding by herself, but seems to be riding quite well. And here is the competition of the evening at 11.1 kilometres. Stoneham and Collier still together as expected. Both riders looking fairly comfortable at this stage. At 17 minutes 50 seconds approximately, Littlewood and Nixon are now riding together. Just another quick look at Campbell, who seems to be drifting further back in the field. It could just be because of this hill, of course, at 7%. I would expect him to close the gap a little bit further up the course where it is flatter. And here is the group ahead of him, 1 minute 49 seconds further up the course. At 16 kilometres, Jury is still riding with Taff and Shannon, which is a surprise. I didn't think he could hang on to this group. But even more interesting, up ahead with O'Brien, now only 16-17 seconds ahead of the Shannon and Taff chasing group. Collier and Stoneham, as predicted, still together at the moment. No great surprise here, Stoneham and Collier still riding together, both challenging each other. Let's see what happens on this incline. Power going up from Stoneham, 480, 490 watts, so clearly they are trying to attack whenever they get the opportunity with the main B group now. And in fact, Jury has dropped off that group by over a minute and a half and is drifting back towards Campbell, who's only 18 seconds behind him. A serious review of tactics required from Jury, I think. At 22.9 kilometres, back at the front of the race with Lancia down to a much smaller group. Clearly he will now be thinking about another win. 4 in a row for him. No sign of Lisa. I'm not quite sure where she is at this stage, but I'll see if I can find her. And here is Lisa, some 50 seconds further back. She'll be much happier now that she's in a group along with Davis and Mayhew Smith. I think she'll respond very well to this competition, and I wouldn't be surprised if this group begins to catch up with the A's further in front. Take your eyes off one rider for a minute or two and then something happens, and here is Mayhew Smith, 1 minute back on the group. Not quite sure what happened, but he seems to be suffering a little bit. And just ahead of him, 43 seconds ahead, Lisa now has the green jersey, so clearly she's feeling a little bit better. O'Brien is now with a group, but still ahead of Shannon and Taff, about a minute behind him at this stage. Jury's early full gas approach has come back to really bite him now. He's drifted further and further back into the field and is now riding with Campbell, who undoubtedly will have responded well to seeing a fellow team member just ahead of him on the course. From what I can see, I expect Jury to drift even further back. Collier and Stoneham still together, no great surprise there. At 23.2 kilometres, 42 minutes into the race with Jones, and at 23.7 now with Telford, both riding by themselves, which won't suit either rider. And here we are again with Stoneham and Collier, seem to be pushing ahead, pulling away from the group that they're with, challenging each other with not many kilometres left to go. Campbell, sensing the finishes, began to push ahead and has dropped Jury, who continues to fall further and further back in the field. Up the front now with Lancia. The final climb and sprint for the finish, and Lancia winds it up, 9-10 watts per kilo. He's going for it, and Lisa's just behind him as well, as is Davis. But it is Lancia that gets it on the line, and here comes Davis just a few seconds down with Lisa right next to him. Though do remember, Davis has a 1 minute advantage. O'Brien just about to cross the line, but here comes the finish for Shannon and Taff. Let's just see what happens. Taff's winding it up really quickly. I think he's caught Shannon by surprise. Is he going to catch him? Just about. Yes, he is. I think he is. Yes, he is. He passes him just on the line. With no other BCC riders around him, Campbell's nothing to lose really, but always the competitor he is, nonetheless going to push and make his final sprint for the finish. And he crosses the line in 53.24, and here we have Jury slowly dragging himself up to the line in 54 minutes 38 seconds, and the competition with Stoneham and Collier right up to the very end. It's all coming down to the sprint. Not sure who's going to get this. Stoneham's ahead at the moment. I don't think Collier's quite got it. No, he hasn't, and Stoneham crosses the line first and Collier just a couple of seconds behind him. Nixon crosses the line in 59.45 ahead of Littlewood. Here he is now. And not forgetting our final rider in the course tonight, Lord, who goes on to cross the line 1 hour 12 minutes 8 seconds and gets herself a silver medal for the D category riders. And on to the results for this evening. Another great win for Lancia. 4 wins in a row for the A's, but not to be outdone. Davis actually beat him to the finish line, numerically at least, by 1 minute, winning in 48 minutes and 11 seconds at, of course, you guessed it, 3.99 watts per kilo. Not forgetting Blackham retired early on, which may have impacted the competition, I don't know. In the Bs, fantastic sprint finish between Shannon and Taft, with Taft winding it up and timing it perfectly and just beating Shannon on the line. Dury, unfortunately, I think suffered a bit tonight, went off way too fast with the A's and drifted slowly right to the back of the field. In the C's, another great battle between Stoneham and Collier. Next race is on Thursday evening. Many thanks for watching.